Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Fish Doctor. So this week, we have a really interesting deck to look at. This is 4-color Mystic, a 4-color version of Murmuring Mystic, and it comes to us from Sir Toast, who told me that this was the first deck they ever tried to build. So welcome to the brewing world, Sir Toast, and the deck has some really cool ideas. The main idea was to build the equivalent of the modern Young Pyromancer deck in Standard, with Murmuring Mystic filling in for Young Pyromancer. However, there are some big challenges that we're going to talk about and hopefully kind of tune and improve the deck, with Murmuring Mystic still being the foundation, but trying to see if we can kind of make the deck a little bit more competitive, a little bit more consistent. So a quick reminder before we Fish Doctor up, 4-color Mystic for Standard from Sir Toast. If you enjoy Fish Doctor and the other series here on the channel, it would be amazing of you if you could take a second, click that subscribe button down at the bottom of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So let's first break down this 4-color Mystic deck. So the idea, as I mentioned in the intro, is to build the equivalent of like Mardu Pyromancer in Modern, but in Standard, with Murmuring Mystic being our Young Pyromancer. And you can see the similarities. They actually work pretty much the same. Young Pyromancer, 2-mana, 2-1, that when you cast Instant Sorcery, you get a 1-1. Murmuring Mystic, double the cost up front, 4 mana, but you get a 1/5, so it dodges like Lightning Strike and whatnot, dodges even like Lava Coil. And when you cast Instant or Sorcery, you get a 1/1, but instead of a elemental on the ground, it's a bird in the air. So there are some upsides of Murmuring Mystic. However, the cost of it is also a big downside. In Modern, with the Young Pyromancer decks, it's very easy in the mid game, like let's say turn 5, to play Young Pyromancer and immediately generate value. Faithless Looting, Thoughtseize, Lightning Bolt. Not only is Young Pyromancer cheaper, but the spells in the Modern format are a lot cheaper than the spells in the Standard format. So it's pretty easy to cast 2 or 3 1-mana spells on the turn where you play Young Pyromancer, and then even if your opponent untaps and kills it, you already got a reasonable amount of value because you're playing spells you want to be playing anyway, in the Faithless Lootings and the Thoughtseizes and the Lightning Bolts. However, Murmuring Mystic at 4 mana, it's a lot harder to do that with, and that's not even considering that the spells in Standard are just so much more expensive. You're replacing 1-mana Lightning Bolts and 1-mana Thoughtseizes with 4-mana Artful Takedowns and 2-mana Thought Erasers, which means the entire process is just significantly slower in the Standard format. So that's the big challenge of the deck. How can we overcome the expensiveness of Standard? Like the fact that our Young Pyromancer costs twice as much, and a lot of our spells cost at least twice as much. Is there a way that we can build around that issue and still make a deck where Murmuring Mystic is our Young Pyromancer that generates a ton of value and wins us the game? So that's kind of challenge number 1 of the deck. So to jump back to the deck list really quick, the big thing that is troubling me with the deck list is basically the 4-color aspect of it. And if we look at the actual breakdown of the deck, you'll see where this can be problematic. So the shell is sort of Grixis based, but splashing green for Saproling Migrations and also for Assassin's Trophy, along with some sideboard cards, a little tiny bit in the sideboard. But if we delve into this mana base, you'll see where the trouble is. So first off, our blue mana is looking fine. We have a massive 14 blue sources. That is perfectly acceptable in our deck. We shouldn't have any trouble hitting our blue mana. Then for black mana, it gets a little sketchier. We have 10 black sources. Not ideal, but not impossible to overcome. Red mana, we get a little bit less with only 9 sources. And then the big problem is our green mana. We only have 4 sources of green mana in the deck, and when you consider that we have 4 Saproling Migrations that we want to play on turn 2 and 3 Assassin's Trophy, we're going to have a lot of games where we are just having these green cards rotting away in our hand, completely unable to cast them. And with our current mana situation, where we only have half of the shock lands, it's really difficult to build a solid 4-color mana base. So I think that the easiest thing we can do to improve this deck right off the bat is to drop the green mana and go into a 3-color Grixis shell. So yes, we lose Assassin's Trophy. Yes, we lose Saproling Migration, which we're more than fine with that. Like losing Assassin's Trophy, that can be a little bit painful because Assassin's Trophy is a very powerful removal spell that just hits anything. However, losing Saproling Migration isn't a really big deal. So my build of the deck, our upgraded build, is straight Grixis, and it's built to do two things. First off, become more consistent by improving the mana. Second off, it's built to really embrace the power of Murmuring Mystic. The first deck had some really awkward choices, and we're hoping to kind of maximize Murmuring Mystic's potential and get around the expensive drawback of it. So first off, the original deck had Dismissive Pyromancer as a way to turn on Wizard's Lightning. It's a very odd fit in the deck though, especially when Goblin Electromancer is a very natural fit with Murmuring Mystic because it makes our spells cheaper, which gets around that expensiveness problem we were talking about, how all the spells in Standard cost like twice as much as in Modern. Well, if we have a Goblin Electromancer, suddenly our 2-mana cantrips become 1-mana cantrips, and the speed of our deck is much more similar to the Modern format. So if we can untap with an Electromancer and also a Murmuring Mystic, our odds of casting a bunch of spells in a turn and making a whole bunch of flying tokens and just winning the game goes way, way up. So changing Dismissive Pyromancer into a Goblin Electromancer, very easy change to improve the deck. Then we have a bunch of drops from the deck. Discovery Dispersal, Thought Eraser, Duress. These are not bad cards by any stretch, but when you think about how the Murmuring Mystic deck really wants to go off, it is chaining together as many spells as possible. To get around the fact that our Murmuring Mystic is 4 mana, what we need to do is make it so if we are lucky enough to untap on turn 5 with Mystic, that we're going to be coming out of that turn with 3, 4, 5 1/1 flyers as the result of taking off our 4th turn to play the Murmuring Mystic. So we drop a lot of these somewhat slower spells. We also drop the green cards as we talk about. The biggest new addition is a ton more card draw. The easiest way to abuse Murmuring Mystic is to draw a bunch of cards, and we even have a cheat code in Guilds of Ravnica, which is Jumpstart. So if you look at Radical Idea, for example, it's 2 mana, which is already fine. If we have Electromancer, it's only 1 mana. The big deal is we can Jumpstart it. So what we're trying to set up here is on turn 5, we untap with Mystic, hopefully Electromancer, and we can 1 mana Radical Idea, 1 mana Jumpstart Radical Idea. That's already 2 flyers. Hopefully that draws us into more Radical Ideas, Charted Courses, even Chemister Insight's not bad if we have an Electromancer or 2 casting it for 3 mana or 2 mana. So the idea is that we're going to spend our entire 5th turn, and then if our Murmuring Mystic lives again, our entire 6th turn, just chaining through these card draw effects. We're able to discard extra lands or spells that we don't really need, removal spells that maybe aren't good at the situation, and hopefully come out of that turn with a whole bunch of birds on the battlefield. We also have a bit of an upgrade with Siren Storm Tamer. This kind of takes the Duress slot. So the downside of Siren Storm Tamer is it is not a spell to trigger Murmuring Mystic, while Duress is. The upside is Siren Storm Tamer gives us a way to protect our Murmuring Mystic, much like we could with Duress. Like, Duress preemptively takes a removal spell that would kill our Murmuring Mystic. Siren Storm Tamer just sits out there and waits for our opponent to try to kill the Mystic, and we can counter the spell. It also ups our wizard count from 8 up to 11, which means our Wizard's Lightning is going to be 1 mana much more often, and that kind of ties back into what we were just talking about, wanting our spells to be as cheap as possible, so we are able to cast as many as possible the turn after we untap with Mystic, because untapping with Mystic and doing all this work to get down a Mystic, only to cast maybe 1 spell, and then get 1 flyer, and then have it die, that's not going to be a realistic plan for winning the game. For Mystic to win us the game, we need to be able to chain those spells together the turn after it comes into play. Also, the other change, since we're losing Assassin's Trophy and kind of tuning up some of the other removal, we get Vraska's Contempt, which obviously is not exactly Assassin's Trophy. It's more expensive. However, it does a pretty good proxy. It doesn't hit artifacts or enchantments, but it does take care of creatures or planeswalkers. The life gain is nice. It is some ways is better than Assassin's Trophy with our Goblin Electromancer, since we're able to actually get a discount on it, when cards like Goblin Electromancer don't really work that well with cards that have all colored mana costs, because you can't reduce the colored mana cost on Assassin's Trophy. Also, a couple of cast downs, so we still have plenty of good removal, and we also get very consistent mana. So if you're building a 3-color deck for the next few months, heading into Ravnica Allegiances, the easiest thing you can do is focus on 3-color combinations that get 2 shock lands, and right now Grixis is one of those color combinations. So we get 8 shock lands, and then we get to fill in around that with a bunch of the check lands or buddy lands, whatever you want to call them. We focus on the blue mana. We don't have any Dragon Skull summits, although we could be playing some. Our deck wants as much of our stuff to tap for blue as possible, though, because the blue mana is is necessary for those big chaining turns. So Radical Idea into Jumpstart Radical Idea, into Chart a Course, into Radical Idea, into Jumpstart Radical Idea to make a whole bunch of birds in a row. So we really want as many of our lands to tap for blue mana as possible, and then we can fill in with blue dual lands to cast our Vraska's Contempts and our Wizard's Lightning and so forth. So that is Grixis Mystic, and it's basically a more consistent, more built around Murmuring Mystic version of the deck we were looking at before. I don't think that the format right now, until we get Ravnica Allegiances, can very reasonably support 4-color decks. Maybe if you're base green and you have a bunch of district guides and other sort of fixing effects, then maybe you can do it, but without having a bunch of fixing effects, it's going to be really hard to be a 4-color deck until we get the rest of the Shocklands. Once we get the rest of the Shocklands, then all bets are off and we got a lot more possibilities. So the basic idea now is play Murmuring Mystic on turn 4, hopefully have a Goblin Electromancer out, and then untap on turn 5 and cast as many of our card draw effects as possible. So we get a huge board full of birds, and then once we get 4 or 5 birds, even if our opponent is able to kill our Murmuring Mystic, it kind of already did its job. Worst case, we already got a bunch of 1/1s to hopefully win with, or to chump block with while we wait to draw into another Murmuring Mystic. The other upside to all this card draw is it's going to find us more Murmuring Mystic. So even if our opponent kills the first one, we made a bunch of birds, we drew a bunch of cards, hopefully we find another copy, and then we repeat the process with more card draw and more Radical Ideas, and then we back it all up with good removal, a reasonable sideboard plan, consistent mana by moving down to 3 colors, and we got a deck that actually looks pretty reasonable. So anyway, that's been our Fish Doctor for this week, moving 4-color Mystic into 3-color Grixis Mystic. If you have any other ideas about how to build around Murmuring Mystic, make sure to let me know in the comments, or if you have a deck you want considered for a future Fish Doctor, leave a link in the comments, or you can email me, saffronolive@mtggoldfish.com. Anyway, thanks again to Sir Toast for sending in a super sweet deck, and thank you all for watching. So that's been our Fish Doctor for this week. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.